Hello, and welcome to Talking Toddlers, where I share more than just tips and tricks on how to reduce tantrums or build your toddler's vocabulary. We're going to cover all of that, I assure you. But here, our goal is to develop clarity, because in this modern world, it's truly overwhelming, especially during these past 2 years. This podcast is about empowering moms to know the difference between fact and fiction, to never give up, to tap into everyday activities so your child stays on track. He's not falling behind, he's thriving through your guidance. We know that true learning starts at home, and Talking Toddlers, this podcast helps you develop that with clarity, confidence, and clear communication. So let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Talking Toddlers. I'm Erin Heyer, your host from Higher Learning, and I have been talking toddlers, playing with toddlers, coaching parents, educating the educators for 35 years. It's all, to me, so important that we, as the leaders in charge of these beautiful, beautiful babies and toddlers and early elementary kids, that we work together, that we understand how to serve them best, how to support early childhood development, to really go back to some basics, to understand that parents are in charge, that parents are the first teachers, the first guide, that you are the most important influencer in your young child's life. And that I think, unfortunately, over the last several decades, we've kind of given up our position, our role, that we defer to the experts, that we defer to the educational system or the medical model. And really, mom, dad, grandparents, you are in it. You really just need to be comfortable with knowing that this little baby was given to you by God for you to guide and love and nurture. And you can do this. And so what I try to do each and every week is to kind of break through some myths, some inaccuracies, to give you a lot of detail at the same time to make it practical, to make it doable. But without the detail, without understanding how we're wired and how the human being grows and learns and develops, given the right opportunities, it's hard to do the do's, right? It's hard to implement the tips and the tricks and the strategies. And we often then will kind of let go or let it just kind of fall by the wayside if we don't really understand the why. And so I started this podcast really explaining what my why is. And each and every week I try to refer back to that. And this week, looking at how many inaccuracies there are floating, maybe we can call them urban myths, but they're distortions, they're exaggerations, they're even fabrications on some level. And parents, you're kind of in the middle of it, and it's hard to differentiate what's really important and real and true to your baby or toddler or preschooler, and what is not, what is, some misunderstanding, I guess. And so today's topic is really about strategies that you can use. I'm just kind of honing in on 5 specific strategies that you can use with no matter where your child is developmentally. And there is a term called late talkers, and it's kind of based in that model of how I address a child who is late to talking, right? And on another episode, I can dive deep on what is and what isn't a late talker. But these strategies are used for all kids, whether you're a little slow to build these communication skills, or if your child's right on target, right on path, and clipping away. Keep these things in mind to help continue foster and shaping and enhancing the verbal communication. But remember, I try to help the listener, you, understand how these things are not compartmentalized. So a speech and language pathologist like myself can talk about talking and listening and attention and chewing and eating. That kind of falls under my scope of practice, my umbrella. But you cannot address those things without looking at play skills and social emotional development and movement and learning how to crawl and walk and climb stairs and pedal a bicycle and balance and all of these things, because at the end of the day, what I've studied for 35 years, what I've tried to put into practice is how the brain learns to learn. And that's what we're doing here. We're wiring the brains. If we can go back to a previous episode, I believe that it was episode number 4, where I talk about how brains are built. They're not born. And then I talk about, as a new parent, please, please, please embrace this notion that, the baby survived 280 days, not survived, that's not appropriate, but grew into this beautiful little essence of a human being, 280 days in utero, hopefully, those 40 weeks. But in order to survive the birth canal, they came unfinished, that they're under construction, and that it's up to us to continue to help them evolve and grow into the best version of themselves. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk today about 5 very simple strategies to keep in mind, to hone in, to shape and reshape your techniques to help your toddler talk more, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we want them to be. Good communicators, lay that foundation to lifelong learning, whether it's, social and experiential, learning environments at the same time to break that code to written language, which I haven't even tapped into yet, but that's how it's all connected in this beautiful, first 7 or 8 years. So the first strategy could sound a little backwards because I state, don't do all the talking. And so you might think, wait a second, what about all of this narration? What about, talk to your baby and talk to your toddler, talk. And we have to keep in mind that communication is a two-way street, that we want to help them develop their verbal communication as well as their receptive or understanding communication. So when we have a conversation, even though on this podcast it's kind of one-sided, I'm talking, but at the same time you're thinking, you're having a conversation inside your head, you're determining whether you agree with me or disagree with me. So there is a conversational flow going on. Our brains are never just shut off and you're just inputting data. That's what a computer does. But what we're doing with our toddlers is that we're helping them understand their environment through language and giving them space to process, right? To really develop an understanding in the moment. So we talk about what they're doing. We're talking about what they see. We're talking about the environmental pieces, whether they're toys or whether you're having a snack. And yes, it's true that kids need to hear 21,000 words, and that's kind of on the low end, per day. And it averages out to be about 2,100 words an hour because most toddlers are awake for, 10 hours a day. And so you do the quick math. But it's very, very important that we give them room to process, to really understand what's happening, and then generate some kind of response, whether it's nonverbal through a gesture or an environmental noise or a facial expression or verbal expression themselves. So we ask a lot of questions. We're always bombarding them with language. And yes, that's really, really important at the same time that we give them that white space, right? And so it might sound something like this, where you sit down to play and say you have some animals and you have some trucks or whatever, and you say, I wonder what the monkey's doing. And then you wait, right? That pause right there kind of felt a little uncomfortable, didn't it? But it was purposeful. You give them time. So right now I'm going to wait 5 seconds, and I just want you to feel it. It's uncomfortable, but just feel it. Yep, that was only 5 seconds, but you give them that time. It's not like you throw out a question and then you move on to something else, but you make a comment. I wonder what the monkey's doing. And you give them time to organize their thought, to look at the monkey, to figure out, maybe he's sleeping, maybe he is hiding, maybe he's looking for a banana, whatever it might be. But you give them time to formulate a response. And that's really, really important. But at the same time, you have to continue to be present yourself. Your child needs to understand that you're in it, that you made that comment for their sake, to entice them to comment back. And it's a dance. It really, really is. And you have to be comfortable with just making comments and then being present and waiting for them. And I think in this day and age where life is fast, life is quick, and we're looking for immediate gratification, quick, it's hard to slow down with our little ones. And so just keep that in mind as you move throughout your day, and even through, the everyday tasks, whether you're cutting up an apple and you sit down and you just, this tastes yummy. And then you wait and see, that will open that window, and he or she will more likely be to imitate or to make some kind of comment, or even just to smile and make that eye contact. Like, I heard you, Mom. Yep, let's have some more apple. And so whether you're changing or you're giving them a bath or you're washing their hands, or you just take a deep breath once you kind of buckle them into the car seat and you go, let's go for a car ride. And you give them a moment to settle, to process, and to think about your words, the action, the moment in time. And so give them that white space. Don't always be talking both ends of the conversation. The two-way communication is that they need opportunity to generate and practice their voice too. So that's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is to actually ask fewer questions. Yep, that's it. It's really, really hard habit to break. And even me, a therapist for 35 years, I catch myself over and over and over again, because it's natural. You're working with a younger person. They're not necessarily, a chatty Cathy just yet. And you're wanting them to ask questions, or you're wanting them to answer your questions, right? It's in that quote unquote kind of teaching model. And I think I've shared with you on this podcast before that I've had several families that just bombard their kids with questions. And it's like, whoa. You have to really be their partner in this. And it's not a teacher where you're drilling them down and stopping them from actually listening to you, but you have to entice them, because learning how to talk and communicate effectively in this flow, this give and take, takes practice. And some kids who are well loved and well taken care of, have kind of said, oh, why do I have to bother talking? Because all my needs are met. And I'm happy, and mama's happy, and daddy can play with me. And, all these wonderful things are just fine in my life. And so we have to entice them to use their verbal communication quite often and to engage with us. So if we bombard them with questions, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Then the opposite effect happens and they shut down. Not on a conscious level, but they just stop trying, because it's like, I can't even process what you're saying. I can't generate an appropriate answer. And even if I try to formulate something that's not perhaps very clear, you're going to walk all over me again or talk all over me again. But you're not doing it on purpose. And trust me, therapists do it, teachers do it, parents, everybody does it. So be present, listen to yourself, and realize that questions can be very, very demanding. So let me give you a couple of other options. The first is to give your child choices. And once you can kind of give them two options, models, right, then they don't have to work so hard to formulate an answer. And so, instead of saying, what do you want to drink? You could say, would you like water or lemonade? And so you give them the choices, and they might just point to it, but if you give them the verbal model, then they'll be able to generate a little more smoothly, and they'll feel much more effective in it. And you don't always have to show them the model either. You can say, do you want to wear your elephant pajamas or your blue stripes? And so you're giving them the language model, and you don't necessarily have to have the two sets of pajamas, to look at, but you could. And so if they just look at you, then you could pull out the pajamas and you can say the blue stripes or the elephant pajamas. And so you're giving them both the verbal model, and then you're giving them the visual cue at the same time. This works especially well, in those 12 months to 18 months when the first words are just starting to pop, and you want to take it to simple, dog or cup or water, to a little bit more elaborate descriptive terms, right? Blue stripes. And so they might just say stripes, and elephant, and they might say Fint or Ella, or, they might approximate it, but they're using their voice after they've heard your model. And so it's really, really important to have, and that's what we call shaping, right? That they'll have their kind of modified version of that target word. And then over time, with many, 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 many practices, it'll sound closer and closer to the adult form. But giving a child choices is very, very empowering. It takes the pressure off. Another excellent tool to use instead of asking questions is to give your child a fill in the blank. And this to me is one of the best models to use. Filling in the blanks is an automatic process in our brains. And especially if you're doing daily routines and rituals and you're singing songs or you're using it within a very concrete environment. So, for example, if I was to say right now, row, row, row you automatically inside your head say boat. You fill it in because that's really how our brain works. And for example, if I was to speak something that was a little off, your brain would correct it inside your own head. That's what we do. We're shaping it because it's looking for common patterns. It's looking for things that make sense. And you'll notice this when you're reading books over and over with kids, that they'll fix it if you make a mistake. They'll correct you because they've learned what the pattern is. And if it goes out of whack, they make or that draws attention to that thing that's off. And so filling in the blank is an excellent way. And it doesn't even have to be with songs or rhymes or any of that. Say you're playing with trucks or trains or little people, which is one of my favorite. And the cow is jumping, and you can say the cow jumped over the fence, or the gate, or the boy, or whatever you're doing in real time, they can fill in the blank. And as long as it's as in part of their vocabulary and their experience, then they'll be able to fill in that blank. And it really, really is a wonderful way to get them engaged, to stay attentive to your spoken language and your actions, and then slowly but surely entice them to use their words and speak with you. Now, some kids will automatically be very good imitators, and they'll repeat the whole phrase. Like, I have a little guy, I just saw him early this morning, and he's one of the best imitators I've seen, where I say a phrase and he will repeat it and then expand upon that. And it's been such a blessing to work with him in these last 6 months. He was pretty nonverbal when I first saw him in early spring, and not that he was a nonverbal child per se, he just didn't, chat a lot, and it didn't come easy or smooth for him. He also has a twin sister who is very talkative, and so he just kind of relinquished, I think, that control, and we had to, over time, really encourage him to find his voice. And but imitation is kind of his jam, and he has taken the ball and run with it. But I started with fill in the blanks, right? And we started with really simple things that he understood and that he could easily fill in the blank and feel confident, feel like he was part of this communication dyad. And then it really empowered him over the weeks and months of working together. So then the third technique, instead of asking questions, is really just to model and to give them those windows of opportunity. So like this little guy, imitation is that next step, right? And that it's natural for kids to do what you do, to say what you say, and to imitate those people that he or she spends the most time with. And so that's kind of that next natural step. If the child is not imitating you or, answering your questions, then pull back, and that's where you give them a lot of fill in the blanks. But it's really natural for kids to imitate us if they don't feel pressured, if they don't feel like they're having to, quote unquote, perform, right? And so these kinds of things, to give them a choice, to fill in the blank, to give them that white space so they can naturally imitate and then expand upon that. That's the beauty of this conversational flow you can be doing with your kids as you're playing, whether it's playing with blocks and cars and trucks, or just engaging at bath time, or going about your daily activities, whether you're wiping off the table, and you can say, oh, I need the cloth. Right? And you can even point to it, but you can really help them join you in this conversational flow. Now, number 3 of these 5 strategies to help your toddler talk more would be don't say. And again, this kind of is counterintuitive, or it's a habit I think that a lot of adults, again, including many, many therapists, including me, is hard to break. It's a habit that's really hard to move away from, because we're like, say this, say this, say this, say this. We're pointing to this. And we end up just labeling things. It becomes robotic. There's no meaning. So when we're using this kind of framework, it removes the contents, right? It removes the meaning behind the words. So a very, basic introductory example would be, say you're playing ball with your little toddler. And instead of saying, say ball, 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 you would use the ball in context in real time and be labeling it. Give them the model, and then you could even give them the opportunity to fill in the blank. So you would say, as you hold up the ball, let's throw the ball. 1, 2, 3, throw the ball. Bounce, bounce, the ball is bouncing. Here is the. So you give them that fill in the blank, and maybe they'll say ball then. That's a really concrete, basic scenario. But as the language and the vocabulary expands, then you're, again, giving them opportunities to imitate you naturally. So say you're playing with farm, little people, and the cow is eating the grass, and you're just giving them examples. Oh, the cow loves to chew on the grass, right? And, the chicken is eating the grass. I don't think chickens eat grass, but you're just giving them model after model instead of saying, oh, here's grass, here's a cow, here's a chicken, here are animals. Instead of labeling everything, you put it in context in short, sweet phrases, and you're repeating the opportunity for that target word. And it takes practice, trust me. And I have seen many, many therapists in my day, not necessarily understanding, because we're trained to imitate this and drill this and, practice, 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 but to pull back and make it more natural, and you're kind of shaping and guiding the framework, the kids will follow along. And you just stay mindful with not necessarily talking too much, asking too many questions, or trying to back them into a corner to repeat after you on command. And that's tricky. And many, many kids intuitively will feel too much pressure and they shut down, right? And they really, really resist. And in these last couple of years, it seems to have spiked. Toddlers really don't have a lot of things that they have complete control over, but the 2 areas they tend to hold tight to are when and if I choose to talk to you, as well as when and if I choose to eat what you give me. So eating and talking are the 2 things that they really do have control over. So we have to entice them and help them understand that they're going to be happier and healthier once they find their voice and once they eat, healthy, happy, or healthy nutritional food. But that's a different conversation. So number 4 in this list of 5 strategies is to remove the batteries. Yep, I know that I have really talked about how screens should be extremely limited, if not null and void for those first couple of years with your toddler and your preschooler. But even toys that have batteries that, you push buttons and the light goes on or the song comes on, those really inhibit kids from using their voice. And quite often kids will use that to distract themselves from engaging with you, or to busy it's sort of like this background noise that they are constantly using to shield themselves from interacting. And it happens all the time with kids who do have very specific developmental delays, but it also works, with kids who are developing, but they're a little bit behind, those late talkers or those late mature kids who really are just using noise and devices to shield them from doing stuff that might be a little harder or might be a little more challenging. To attend to other humans can be tricky for some kids. And so keep that in mind, that I have had a ton of parents just remove the batteries. And some parents think that that's more frustrating for the kids. So they just, when they go to bed at night, they just remove that toy. And kids might fuss for a day. The rule of thumb is maybe 3 days in a row, and then they forget, and they move on. They find something else to engage with, and through your guidance and through your modeling, they'll figure it out. So not only put away technology and screens, but remove the batteries or remove the quote unquote toys that aren't really interactive, right? We want kids to interact with things and to be creative, to really, and this is what play is all about, to make believe with objects in their environment, and to use their hands to match their language and their thoughts, and to build and get messy. And things with batteries don't really allow that. And then number 5 is don't be boring. I know it really is important that we are exciting and even more exciting than their toys, and that they want to be in it with us and engage with us. And we use the tools or the toys or the everyday things, whether it's a box that we're just filling up with sand, or whether it's cups and we're just stacking them high. Those tools help inquire about our environment, but it's us who need to engage and not be boring. That we want our kids to really feel important, that we can tune out our work, that we too disengage from our technology and be present and really help them feel like we're in it with them, right? To make funny voices, to pretend and in character, to show them, to influence them how to play, how to engage, and how to attend to the task at hand, whatever that is, whether it's goofy and making, mud pies, or whether it's just, putting all your stuffies to bed and taking tissues out and giving them a night-night kiss, whatever the creative flow is, but that you're in it with them. And that if something like this morning when I was playing with a little guy who loves to imitate and expand upon my imitation, and it's so great. He's actually being discharged, and it's so wonderful to watch them just blossom before your eyes. But we were racing these little cars, these wind-up cars that are kind of heavy, but they crashed into my little heating system and the top fell off, and he looked at me like, uh-oh. And I just started laughing and laughing, and he just imitated me. And I said, no big deal. And he's like, no big deal. And I said, it's all fine. But he wasn't sure of what my response was going to be. And I just, laughed it off because it really wasn't a big deal. And even if it was a big deal, meaning like, we spilled the water, or you knocked over a pot and now we have to clean up the mess. It's no big deal in the scope of things. And sometimes we just really have to let go of our tightness and let kids understand that mistakes happen. We just, rectify it the best we can, and then move on. But the important part is don't be boring, keep it fun, be present, be a great influencer, because your child is depending on you, and you can do this. I know you can. So keep those 5 strategies in mind. Don't do all the talking, ask fewer questions. Don't say this, say this. Keep it fun, and the most important, no, they're all important really, is remove the batteries. Do not let your toddler, spend their day in front of a screen. It is so anti-development. It is not in their best interest. You really, really know this in your heart. I know this through all of my years of study and all my years of working with kids. But they need you. They need you to get on the floor, to be with them, to have toys that are simple and basic, and to demonstrate through everyday activities how life is fun, life is joyful, life is funny, life can be exciting, life can be slow, life can be enriching, life can be soft, life can be complicated, but they learn it through you. So with that, thanks again for spending your precious time with me here on Talking Toddlers. And if you're enjoying all of these perspectives, all of these techniques and background information, and you're gaining new insight, please share with your friends and family. That's what helps me reach more and more parents, new parents, just like yourself. Help me help others, spread the word, expand my reach, support all of those that really need, guidance. And your kids need your guidance, and you need guidance from people that, like myself, who's been in the thick of it for decades. It's a new world out there, and these last couple of years have been very, very tricky. And my purpose here is to help you clear the clutter, find clarity, know how to support your child best, and to alleviate any doubts in your mind. And so that's what Talking Toddlers is here to do, to help demystify these early years, lay that foundation to lifelong learning, to build strong communication, great self-regulation, great ability to focus, to be able to turn it on, turn it off, to be fluid in their social, emotional skills, and to develop relationships. So that's what it's all about. Please, leave a review. That too helps me, with the algorithm, to spread the word more and to reach parents just like you. So God bless, enjoy, play, sing, and every once in a while, just chill and laugh until your sides hurt. Okay, take care. God bless. Bye-bye.